everyone seems to love a good toy hunt, and it's time to ask the question, are gone the days where we used to go to big box brick and mortar stores or go to our mom and pop shops? Because I sure hope those days aren't over, but it seems like everybody's kind of migrated online and started saying, hey, let's pre-order things rather than getting them in person. But you know what? I got a toy show coming up next week, so I figured what better time to discuss this, because like I said at the beginning, everybody loves a good toy hunt. So what I'm going to do is welcome everybody to this edition of the Toy Connections online live stream, or TKO. And I don't see why we should delay. Let's get some of our friends on screen, even though they were streaming late last night. Now, this individual, he'll probably be streaming again at 2 p.m. Pacific time later today. He's always got something going on his channel. One of my favorite, one of just the most welcome and fun people to join Toy Connections. And he's been kind of like a semi-regular on this show right now, and you'll see him again sometime in April, but let's bring him on right now and have a discussion right here today. Adam from Highly Articulated, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, Ken. What's going on?
I kind of scatterbrained and jumped ahead a little bit because I know we recorded a premiere for when I'm specifically at a toy show a few weeks down the road, and then I was like, why don't I just get him on screen and we can just talk about this right here and now. So,
sure, yeah.
Yeah, and also someone who was streaming late with you last night is, again, another person who I love having on this channel, and one of my favorite MOTU friends to discuss, well, all things MOTU and all things like independent Kickstarter type stuff. So, Ozstradamus Toyz, welcome once again, buddy.
Good morning, everybody. Man, wow. Feels like I was just doing this. I was.
Just a number of hours ago you were streaming, and now all of a sudden it's like, here you are back again, just what do you call it, back at the grind. It's like, if you're live, and if not, you're asleep. That's how it works, right? You're either asleep or you're live. That's your whole life, right?
That's pretty much how it
feels. So one thing I will mention is that next week's TKO, and what kind of prompted this particular discussion, is going to be a premiere. It's not going to be, I'm not going to be live next week. So I may air that on the Saturday, just because then people overseas, where it's Sunday for them, it's might be easier for them to watch live at that point in time. Because, yeah, there'll be a 2-day toy show, so I won't be able to go online live on either day. But yeah, that one will be, actually, I'm trying to remember because we recorded it over a month ago, knowing that it was going to be coming up. Oz, you're on that episode, and so is Gazz. And then in 3 weeks' time, I have another show where it's just me and Adam. So that's why I said these are both like regulars on here. But I'm like, wait, when was the last time I had you both on? I think it was kind of recent. I think it was the Mythic Legion stream. Might have been that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yes. All right. Well, why don't we say a quick hello to the chat and then jump into our topic. So we got Brick Something, Largo's Lair, Nolan, Payne's Toy Samples. We've got Quip. We've got it's just jumping. Okay, we've got Sir Clifton, and all right. So I know some people generally file in a few minutes late, but let's.
A lot of just familiar names in there. It seems like it's a lot of people that we seem to chat with regularly, even if we've never chatted with them before, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sir Clifton says finally got to make a live TKO, so welcome, and glad to see you here. I haven't fueled up with coffee yet, so I'm still trying to get the caffeine going. StreamYard's being weird. It says there's currently 0 people watching, and I'm like, I don't believe that's actually true. Like, it's giving me this.
Definitely not accurate. Mine, all of last night, said 0.
Really?
I'm like, I see all these people in the chat. That can't be accurate at all. So.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't obvious, but it threw me off in the introduction. And I was like, I started talking, and all of a sudden I tripped over my words. I don't know if it was obvious because I suddenly saw the 0. I'm like, but there's people in the chat. What's going on? So,
as long as you can see the comments. I was doing a video one day, and I thought nobody was watching because there was no comment. I thought people were just bored out of their minds, and it turns out that StreamYard just wasn't filtering it through to me. So I had to pull up YouTube.
I remember that one.
And like
pop out the live
YouTube
chat
on a delay while I tried to sort of interact with what was going on in the comments. It's not perfect, but I mean,
hopefully they're working through the bugs. Anyway, let's keep saying hi to the chat. We got Magnificent Mark in here, TJC, figuratively speaking, Hilly and Dread. See, clearly it's not. Clearly the StreamYard number is not accurate.
Yeah.
I think I see way more than 0.
It's currently showing 17.
Okay, good. Pickle D. Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Like TKO's gotten to the point now where like sometimes there's 15 people watching, sometimes there's 55. Like it's just like it's really weird. I think I had upwards of 70 a little while ago, and then when I talk wrestling, I get downwards of like 5 people watching. So
yeah, that's when I log off. So
I was like, Adam specifically is one of those who logs off when he sees a wrestling chat. You know what? I don't honestly blame him because like there are just certain topics I'm not into, right? Like I like. For example, we were talking offline about Lego. I like building Lego, but if you're going to talk nothing but Lego, and I apologize to Brick something because I just realized he's a big Lego person, right? Unless he has Kayla Silva on, because she's got some charisma going. So that episode I'll watch. But
man, I did an unboxing and a build of a Lego set. What was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago? And I was bored doing it. It took way too long. It was just like, man, there's people that's full-time YouTube or Twitch or whatever. They just build Lego sets and people watch them build Lego sets, and I just can't understand it. And I love Lego, but yeah, I mean, there's just certain topics or certain things that for whatever reason they just don't do anything for
they just don't resonate. Yeah. All right. I don't know. All right. And sorry, keep going here. You got Jeff Morris. We got I almost missed one, Shinovo. And Sir Clifton, first time viewer, says is a big wrestling fan. So you know what? There you go. Right. And of course we've got the definition of adult fan of Lego right here. So yeah. And no, Brick, you know what I meant. You know what I meant. It's like no charisma from Brick. Well, that I'll watch. Love you, Ken. All right. Yeah. So, of course, I've always got Brick on here to talk Mythic Legions and other things. So I'm like, if he didn't have any charisma whatsoever, well, you know what? He might not be a TKO guest. But yes. And yeah, people are still filing in. We got Pop Actor, we got Black Phoenix 77, we got our all-star moderator Gazz, we got Shellback Toy Rewind, who will likely be a guest sometime relatively soon. We got to touch base once again on that. And yes, I haven't even thought about that, the actual Snake Mountain build on this. So
hey, Shellback, are you getting that Mecha Leo? Curious.
There you go, Shellback. We'll start off with a question for you. All right. So anyway, gentlemen, sorry, just I need some coffee, so let's do it. Sip some coffee.
Go ahead, have some coffee, man.
Mm-hmm. All right. And some more people filing in. Hello, Jarhead. All right. We'll continue saying hi to the chat when we get a chance. But look, I think I know the answer to this. But I'm going to be the rebel in the room because I'm going to predict your gentleman's answer, and I'm going to have an opposite answer. But do you prefer to hunt in person, or do you prefer to hunt online?
I want you to predict our answers before we give them.
Okay, I think you two are going to give the boring answer and say, I just like to log in online and have it arrive at my door and not think about it. And then I'm going to say, but the toy hunt and the thrill and the rush and, all that fine and dandy stuff. So kick us off, Adam. Did I predict that right?
No, not really. My answer is a lot more nuanced than that. It's a lot more complicated than that. So I kind of, when I got back into toy collecting, it was because I was just in Toys R Us more. When we were going to get baby stuff, I hadn't been into Toys R Us in years and years and years. So for me, this sort of exposure to toys, or sort of my reintroduction, was in a physical brick and mortar store. I started picking stuff up there. I kind of kept picking stuff up there. I still love to pick stuff up at a brick and mortar store, but I now have sort of 2 tiers of things that I buy. So the stuff that I need and I want to like make sure that I kind of guarantee that I can get it, I will pre-order day of, or even, in my case, a lot of times I'll message Mike from eCollectibles and be like, hey, these are coming up Friday. you know, put me in for this stuff when it releases officially or whatever. So I usually have my order in before the stuff gets released. But then I have sort of a second tier of stuff, which is like stuff that I don't need, but if I find it in the wild, I will buy it. Because I do still enjoy finding things on a shelf. And the other thing too is like with certain lines that I buy doubles of, like if I'm buying extra classified stuff, so if it's an army builder or something like that, if I'm gonna get 3 or 4, I'll pre-order 2 and then hunt for like the 3rd or 4th in the wild, because there's just a different feeling finding it on the shelf.
All right.
I could go on, but we probably will go on. So
we'll probably circle back to it, but you know, that's good. Like I know that, and this will be a follow-up question later, like where you live, there isn't as much in the way of toy shows there. Like I know you've got some big box retail stores up there, and you might be able to drive down to where I am. You know, if you're free this weekend, this next weekend, maybe take the drive down. But yeah, you know, like you said, the answer is a lot more nuanced than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be, all right, you two are boring, I'm going to jump on a soapbox, but thank you for that. No,
I still love, like, you know, I have no love for big box stores. But as you said, where I'm located, I don't really have the option. Like if I'm going to look for action figures, it's Walmart and Toys R Us. Toys R Us business model is kind of crap right now. Walmart in a sort of mid-sized town, mid-sized market is not great, and there's only one, right? Like it's not as though, you know, I hear stories about like Oz, I think you've got a couple, but like there's people that are like, yeah, I hit the 11 Walmarts and 12 Targets within 20 miles of my house today. I'm like, what? Like so yeah, I mean, in that respect too, like toy hunting for me is 2 stores, really. Like it's not, unless I want to drive a lot further.
Hard to do that with 3 kids at home, though.
Well, that's part of it too. It's like I can't just be like, okay, I'm going to Vancouver to do toy hunts. You know, that's the whole day, because that's 8 hours round trip driving. Let alone,
that's assuming, that's assuming you don't even go into the store.
That's like I could drive to Toy Traders and back in 8 hours if I don't shop and I just turn around when I get there. But add, you know, 2 hours at Toy Traders, and then, you know, hitting all the other spots. I've done it, but when I've done it, I leave at like 5 or 6 in the morning, and I get back, you know, after dark. So
okay, so I'm not the only one that spends 2 hours at Toy Traders. That's good.
I don't think. I mean, how do you not? But anyway, that's.
Yeah, 17,000 square feet of stuff to look at. So
it's bonkers, man.
It's absolutely bonkers in there. I've done a few videos there of some of their dioramas. Like I haven't even done like the toy hunting videos in there. I've literally just done like the dioramas that they have up there. So yeah, Oz, what about you, buddy?
I'm an in-store hunter. Like that is what I prefer. And I enjoy the event of it being a whole day thing. My buddy Chris, who I call Ziggy, that's his nickname, he and I go out one day out of the weekend, and we spend hitting multiple Walmarts, multiple Targets. Because unfortunately, we don't have like a lot of toy stores around. There's really, that's one in close proximity. And then the rest of them, it's going to be like a several-hour drive out to get to. There's a place called Eternia Toys, not too far from here. I mean, it's far enough that it makes us not really go unless we plan the trip ahead of time. And then we got a couple of local, you know, comic shops and stuff like that that sell toys, but that's not like their main focus either. So I'm left with going to Targets and Walmarts. And fortunately, the dense metropolitan area that I live in, we're saturated with them. And even with that being said, most hunts, you don't find anything, or at least I don't find what I'm looking for. Not to say I don't find anything. There's a lot of great stuff out there. And especially like if I know somebody else is looking for something, it's like, okay, you got to pay it forward, you know, help pick it up, try to get it to them kind of thing. You know, you got to keep your eyes open for stuff like that for everybody. But
I was going to say, like, as far as hunting for other people, it got to the point, like, I still enjoy hunting so much that, like, I'll kind of actively have a list of stuff that people are looking for that I know. and so it sort of justifies me going when I know that I'm not going to be picking anything up. Somebody mentioned in the comments there that there's apps to check what's in store, and there is, but they're not always 100% accurate, and they're not always I've definitely found things in store that it says are out of stock.
I've also seen it say in stock and hunted all over the store. Of course, you can only take the employee's word for it that it's not sitting in the back, but they have no reason to want to hide the stock in the back if it's back there. There's no incentive.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, all right then. So out goes Ken's predictions right then. I just assume everybody I've met online, even though, Adam, if you drove 2 hours southwest and I went 2 hours northeast, we could probably just meet in the middle somewhere, out in Hope somewhere.
Yeah, it would be the middle of nowhere, but yeah.
Be the middle of nowhere. That's why I said Hope. So maybe it's a little more than 2 hours for you, but maybe an hour and a half for me. But
Yeah.
give or take, or will we meet at Merritt? I'm not sure. We're getting geographical now, but it's still kind of nowhere. You know what I mean? You know what? Like online, the thing that I like obviously is the convenience, right? Like you're trading up the thrill for the convenience. Now there's a certain thrill that comes with when you order something that has like a limited window. Like you're sitting there, it's a good time of day for you to just kind of pre-order, and you get it in that 2-minute window before it sells out. There's a bit of a thrill with getting that, but very quickly comes the rush of, oh, I know somebody who didn't get one, and I can only imagine how they feel right now. So that one's not really a rush. That's more like a FOMO rush, more so than anything else. And I then end up feeling bad for getting it because I got one and somebody else didn't. Right. Sometimes if I get two, then the person who didn't get one, I can be like, hey, you know what? I did get a second one to save on shipping. So that's why. So now you have one as well. Right. Like that's happened more than once. Now, with a toy hunt, there's a certain thrill with finding vintage items. Right. Like if you go to a brick and mortar store, like a mom and pop shop or a toy traders that is technically a mom and pop shop, but is kind of a very big mom and pop shop. Like an immensely huge mom and pop shop, or these toy shows. Like I'm just going to share a screen right here, and God, where is it? All right, so here's one corner of one of the toy shows. Right, the question is, are you claustrophobic though?
Yes.
And are you able to navigate the rush like this? So sometimes I gotta wonder that as well. Like for me, I see the toys and I weave through the people as much as possible because I'm there for the toys. Now, if I was there and it was like an arts and crafts fair that I wasn't interested in anything, right? If it was just a really busy miscellaneous flea market, which flea markets are never like this, right? They're usually open every weekend. They're usually open longer. But like, I'm kind of the feeling that like, if it's toys, I will weave through this rush. If it's something else, I probably don't. So, for some people, this is not fun. For me, it is, right? Because I'll run into somebody in the aisle and I'll be like, check out this old school Transformer I got that I've been searching for 3 or 4 years. I can't find it. And they'll be like, oh, that's so cool. I was just looking at that, but I've got one at home and I didn't know if I want to upgrade it or look at this other thing that I found. And sometimes you'll even find new stuff that just came out. And you'll be like, how does that person have it? And why are they already selling it? So I don't know. Like, how do you feel? Like, how do the two of you feel like looking at something like this? Too crowded? What are you thinking?
It gives me so much anxiety.
I was gonna say it looks like a big no.
Really? Okay.
I mean, everybody's different, right? And everybody's sort of hunting for different things. For me, my list is generally pretty short. A lot of what I do for work is search for things and find things for customers. So my ability to sort of find things basically is pretty fine-tuned. So I rarely feel like I actually find something as though it's any sort of surprise, if that makes sense. Like it's very rare that I would not know what I was going to be getting on any given day, even when I go out hunting, right? Like if I'm hunting, I know what I'm looking for. I'm not buying things just like, I generally know what's going to be in the store. I generally know like what I'm potentially going to buy. So the toy fair thing too is sort of like, for me, there's no guarantee that they're going to have the stuff that I want. So there's less, I'm less motivated to sort of go through the anxiety of it to potentially get something that might be of interest, if that makes sense. Like there's too many variables.
Right.
And I tend to buy a lot more new than vintage. I went through the phase where I sort of got all the vintage stuff that I wanted, and kind of got to the point where my list was very, very short, which makes it even harder to find something, at a toy show or at a vintage toy store, because your search parameters are becoming narrower and narrower, and I guess that's part of it too, is that like, online, because I'm buying new, and because I know the dates that things are coming out. Again, like I said, my nature is to sort of have those answers before I need them. So like I said, I mean, I'm typically pre-ordering before there's a pre-order, because it's just, as people are sort of saying in the comments, and, it was, when I was still buying stuff in store, which was up until really the, full lockdown and you couldn't go to stores and stuff like that. Like it wasn't as bad here in British Columbia, Canada. We didn't have lockdowns like a lot of other places did. But I mean, I was avoiding stores. But before that, I was at Toys R Us and Walmart like every day. And I knew, when they would put things out, and I knew when trucks would be, when Toys R Us would get their delivery, and I would know the people, and they would know who I was and what I'd be looking for. So it was, it wasn't like, again, the hunt wasn't a surprise. It was sort of, it became routine. And then then a little bit of the magic sort of wears off too. So it's, the amount of time, the amount of gas, I could be doing other things is what it kind of comes down to. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. What
I
about
could be playing with my toys instead of sort of being in a situation that gives me anxiety.
I think maybe you echo those sentiments, Oz, or you got something to add to that?
For me, the biggest thing, I love the environment of a toy show. I love, it's like being here with all of you guys. I love seeing all the like-minded, similar people. The toy show is definitely where I'm going to reconnect with my childhood and see the toys of my past, because they're just simply not available in store. But if I'm going hunting for origins, I'm not trying to hunt at a toy show necessarily. I mean, maybe somebody might have that con exclusive at the right price at a toy show. That's great, because that's where I'll get it. But, it's just one of those things where being around large groups of people, although I used to be able to cope with it a lot better, I don't always necessarily now, but I'm getting back there. COVID definitely changed a lot too. It added extra anxiety onto the idea of being in a large group of people that I didn't initially have.
And just think, at this particular show, that's just one corner of it. There's this particular show, there was 225 tables. What we're seeing here, I don't know, is like maybe 50. You know what I mean? The whole room was like that for a few hours, and then the rush dissipates after. So yeah. I feel you there. It's great for the vendors. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Carry on.
Yeah, it's still exciting though, because sometimes it's like, I haven't thought about this toy in like 1,000 years, and then I see it at a toy show and I'm like, oh wow. Like Supernaturals came to mind for me like about a year or two ago, where was before COVID. But yeah, it was like I'm walking around and I saw this little hologram thing, and that was great, because then it jogged my memory of Supernaturals, which I used to think was a really fun, cool toy line that I'd pretty much almost completely forgotten about. So, I mean, there's definitely a different feel going to a toy show and the excitement behind hunting at a toy show, because you never know what you're going to find. It's just, can I cope with being around that today? Or do I not want to? Because even when I do my regular toy hunts and I'm in store, if I look down the aisle and it's too crowded, or I see a bunch of kids shopping down the aisle. If I see a bunch of kids down there, I'm going to let them have fun. Let them do their thing. I can circle back around when they're not here because they're trying to pick out what they want. So, I'll definitely, wait until the aisles clear a little bit more before I go through and take a look and see what I find.
That's fair.
But I miss that environment, though, being around so many like people. And again, you get that kind of here when we're doing live streams and stuff. But I don't really like, I'm very introverted in a lot of ways, but connecting with like-minded individuals in a situation like this it can be very fun, and I can hold it together long enough. But we even talked about it last night. It gets draining, very draining on your energy. And then afterwards, it's like you need time to recover.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Like, I think what it is when I see a show like this, when I go in and there's lots of stuff that I like, especially if there's a lot of vintage items, I forget my age, and I'm like 7 years old running through looking at all my favorite cartoons, video games all over again. And that rush for me takes a while to dissipate. Like, we're going to lose a lot of viewers here, but the wrestler, bathroom. Adam, go for a bathroom break. Randy Orton said that his dream was always to go to WrestleMania, right? Next week's WrestleMania weekend. I'm diving deeper down the rabbit hole already. He said when he's in a match at WrestleMania or a big pay-per-view, right? If it's a 20-minute match, it's 20 minutes that he's free falling with a parachute on his back. That's how he feels. And for me, toy shows for the longest time felt this way. It's been a few months since I've been to one, so I'll see what the rush is like next week. But like that's kind of how it is. Like when there's a lot, because I collect both vintage and modern. So when there's a lot of variety on both, and there's a bunch of different toy lines that I collect that are all there: Transformers, Star Wars, Ninja Turtles, MOTU, G.I. Joe, wrestling, whatever it is, Mythic Legions. When I see both vintage and modern stuff, and the modern stuff doesn't necessarily have to be what's in store now, but some mom and pop shops that attend will have the current items. It could be modern stuff from 4, 5, 8 years ago, right? We still consider it modern due to the style, due to the target audience. Now, because I don't know what it is. Like when a toy show is 6 hours long, for me, it was like, that's me, like the Randy Orton analogy. That's 6 hours where I'm just free falling with a parachute on my back. That's why I love talking about these particular topics. And next week, the premiere discussion is about best toy show hauls. It's almost like a sequel to this particular discussion. I didn't design it that way because I filmed that one first. So if I repeat anything next week, it'll be for that reason. But I don't know what it is. Like when it comes to finding a vintage item, right? Like it's rare, but I found that vintage Transformers, like not like the pre-Transformers Diaclone item. Like when I did the video on that, what do you call it? I did a video on the yellow Transformer Sideswipe, the Diaclone one that came out before the G1 was ever a thing. I got that at a toy show, and it was the vendor next to me. Right? So I saw it, and he'd mentioned he was going to bring it, and I was like, well, we'll talk price when you get there. And when I heard the price, and I'm like, this is reasonable, and I've never seen one in person. So I pick it up, and that's the kind of thing you can't find when you're shopping online. Yeah. Having said that, if you develop a rapport with people like Mike from eCollectibles, Adam, you and I are always going to pump that person. Then you kind of like you get a thrill supporting that person as well. And if they have a certain free shipping amount, that's if it's $125 Canadian or less or more, sorry, they say they'll ship for free. There's also a bit of an accomplishment factor in that. There's also now that's where the impulse buy comes in, because when you see something at a toy show, sometimes you don't have time to think before the next customer comes along and maybe scoops the item you wanted. Yeah. You get that impulse buy. The impulse buy for me online, which is a topic I wanted to touch on, that happens more when you're about to like top up an order. Like, okay, I'm at $100 and I need $125 for free shipping. I'll impulse buy that item I was only sort of thinking about. and I'm gonna break for a quick second here because I just missed something. Eternian Ellipse, thank you for joining the Toy Connections channel membership. I don't have a button like Geek Dad Life that goes, I got family. I'm not sure how some others do it, but all right, whatever. I got family. So, you know, in fact, you know what? That doesn't even work for me because they actually call their membership the GDL family. I don't call mine that. I think I just call mine the Toy Connections roster or something like that. Something boring. But thank you for signing up and appreciate you being here.
You call the show TKO. Why don't you just go with knockouts?
Yeah. Knockout memberships. All right. Well, all right. Sorry, I'm just catching up with the rest of the chat here. As I soapbox rant, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm kind of ignoring the chat now, which I tend to do at times. So I do apologize for that, people. But anyway, oh, that's a good one, Brick.
I was going to say, I just saw Brick's comment, and that's genius.
It is, but it also makes it sound like a cult. Or does it not? Is that just me? Is that just me? You've joined the Connected. No?
We should all just, you know, call it what it is. We have, you know, our little toy cults online. That's what it is.
Impossiblepie Tim. Impossiblepie Tim actually just reminded me that the third season of, oh my God, WWE, Adam, bathroom break, A&E biographies were on. And I was just watching the New World Order episode. Like the night he told me, oh, by the way, they did the episode on Joni, China. And I was like, oh, cool. So I dropped what I was doing to watch to watch an episode. And I'm like, oh my God, they did an episode on the NWO. Yeah, everyone's got some great connection. What do you call it? Suggestions here? I got connections. Right.
You gotta go through, collect them all, and then put up a poll on the channel afterwards.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll probably forget, and it'll probably still say like Toy Connections roster. I think the reason I went with roster is because my Patreon has different tiers, right? Like and it refers to each toy line that I really like. The lowest tier is the G.I. Joe reference, not because G.I. Joe is the lowest, but because it was the Flag Crew was like the easiest name to come up with. And then the middle tier is the Autobot Shuttle Crew. And there was a third tier that was like main event roster was what it was called. And then there was an elite tier above that. The main event roster felt redundant. So then when I opened channel memberships just to do, what do you call it? Emojis and whatnot, I put the word roster there, but I took out the word main event. So that's kind of why. Anyway, look at this. Attorney and Ellipse sent us on a bit of a side rant. That's I appreciate that. You know, new family members with family baggage, and I don't mean that in a bad way. So you both kind of touched on this already, but the next thing I wanted to ask is if you are doing an in-person hunt, like, you know, do you have an event near you? Like, do you go to somebody's house to trade? Or is it just the local big box stores or the local mom and pop shop? Adam, you're shaking your head, so I assume it's a simple answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I said, it's Walmart and Toys R Us, and I expect to be empty-handed at both places. I always expect to be empty-handed. I actually, you know, like, and I don't mind doing that. Because it is fun, like I said, to find something in the wild. And I have, you know, the most recent instance where sort of something was there when I was really surprised. This is like, I think it's almost 2 years ago now, but the classified Major Blood, when that came out, I found it at Toys R Us, like the day or the next day after it popped up in the US. So normally we're waiting weeks, if not months. And so that was a huge surprise because BC Interior Toys R Us figure that no one else has posted anything about and nobody's found it yet. So that was fun. That was sort of the biggest one recently. You find the odd thing here or there. Like I'm not a Transformers guy. Ken, you know this. I've got some from the Earthrise and stuff like that. But I did manage to get the Walmart exclusive like Netflix Soundwave or whatever. as well as the Bumblebee.
If you're gonna get something, that's what you get, because Soundwave, that was the one that transformed into a tape deck and came with 2 cassettes. And the Bumblebee was immensely hard to find. People started buying the Buzzworthy one after that transformed into a Cybertronian mode, just to get something, which is still a cool toy. Like, I kind of wish I bought that, or at least bought it to play with my son, because he loves watching that episode where that first episode where Bumblebee turns into a Cybertronian mode. But sorry, keep going on.
Well, I'm not a Transformers guy, but those were characters that I really wanted, and those were the versions that I wanted. So they weren't things that I was going to pre-order, and I don't think I could have anyway. But that's. But then I found out now that, like, somebody was telling me that Soundwave was worth a whole bunch of money.
It is.
It was so hard to find, and I was just like, well, there was one in Walmart, so I bought it. But as far as, locations and sort of where I can go, like, there's flea markets or garage sales, but like, that's, somebody mentioned, I think it was Impossiblepie mentioned that, like, going to Walmart is shopping. It's not toy hunting.
Yeah, he did say that earlier.
Toy shows and flea markets and garage sale, like, that's hunting. And I think garage sale is like the huntingest of the hunting, because there might not even be toys, right? You stop at a garage sale randomly, it could just be pots and pans and old tools. You don't know. But when you do find stuff there, that's like really that's the win. That's the trophy. That's the prized. Mount that one and put it on the wall kind of thing. Because that's a totally different experience. Now, that being said, there was also a bunch of discussion in the chat about, gas prices and like, oh, well, I still enjoy, I don't want to pay shipping charges. I'd rather hit the 27 Walmarts and Targets. If you can hit that many, you have a way better chance of finding the things. But for me, again, like that, so eCollectibles has, I think it's 125, you get free shipping.
Yes, it is.
If I'm ordering a wave of classified figures, even if I order only 4 of the 5, I'm basically looking at 125. If I'm ordering 2 Mythic Legions, it's 125. And a wave is usually like 6 figures or whatever, right? So it's pretty rare that I'm putting in an order for like 1 figure. And even if I am, I just get it shipped with something else. So I don't pay for shipping because I hate paying for shipping.
Yeah.
I'm never in a rush to get that stuff either. That's part of it too for me, is like, with 3 young kids and a full-time job, I would rather do other things than sort of hunt and chase and sort of find a deal or whatever. That's the other thing that I'll mention, is that, like, for a lot of people, if you have Targets, if you're in a market that has Target and Walmart competing against each other, your clearance prices are probably pretty good. I don't get that here. Like, even the Walmart does not, my Walmart does not do clearance. Like, stuff is full price.
Do they put the clearance sticker on it at full price though? Because I love it when they do that.
Yep.
They're like, we've clearanced this out. And it's like, that's the same price it was last week without that sticker.
Yeah, there's a bunch of Masterverse figures that sort of, if they hit a price point, I would consider buying them. But the Walmart has them on clearance for like $3 less than what the retail is. And I'm like, it's not clearance.
At least you got the $3. I've seen it where it's literally like $21.97 or whatever.
They do that. They do that too. I think that happens. I'm pretty sure that happens when they lose the peg. So when something becomes, an orphan, so to speak, and it doesn't have a spot on the shelf, they put a sticker on it so that because it doesn't have a shelf tag anymore.
Okay. Fair enough. Oz, anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. Like, it's a trade-off situation mostly between, again, shopping, hunting. I still call it hunting because the particular toys I'm looking for, it's no guarantee that it's going to be at any of my Walmarts.
Absolutely,
like I said,
right.
I can travel to 8 stores in a day. 4 Walmarts, 4 Targets, whatever, traded up, and I will still go home empty-handed. That's hunting. Shopping means I went and I got something. There was a plan. I went and I got something. I shop at my local toy store because I know when I go there, I'm not going to have to leave empty-handed because they're going to have something.
Right.
I'm going to pay the markup for it.
Mm.
So, like your average price of a Origins figure, because that's mostly what I get Origins. You're talking like $17.99 to $18.99 in a big box store. I go to the toy store, it's going to be $25 to $26.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard because the margins are so slight on those. Like when I talk to my friends at ages 3 and up, they just don't order the same volumes that the big box does. So they'll probably do like a long-term point system or something to that effect. Like that's what some of my local stores here do. They do like a long-term point system. You hit a certain amount of points, you get $25 off or something like that. It'll probably never fully offset finding it at big box. But the difference there too is that your local mom and pop shop, you know when it's going to drop. And if you can schedule a visit within a day or two, you'll probably get the item, right? And if you know the owner and you've bought from them 100 times, they're going to say one of two things. Don't worry about it. I got you. Or this is a really hot item. Just send me a down payment for my peace of mind. Okay. And I'll do that.
That's right.
So yeah,
it's a trade-off for convenience or not.
Yes.
And that's where the shopping online comes in. Because it's not like I don't shop online. You know, I don't have anybody close by that sells Mythic Legions. And I like Mythic Legions. Nobody around is going to be selling AWOC. So, you know.
It's funny you mentioned that. I found Mythic Legions Faustia at the toy show that I pulled up the picture at.
Well, see, again.
But it was a rare thing, right?
You can find at a toy show because there's a vendor there who may have ordered several. But, you know, that's where the shopping online happens. It's a changing environment that we're living in. You know, it's changing those toy habits, as it were.
Toy habits.
But, you know, it's just one of those things where, you know, we're changing how things have to go because buying big box and retail, there's certain toys that you're always going to find on the shelf. You're always going to see Transformers. You're always going to see G.I. Joe. In some way, shape, or form, you're always going to find Star Wars. You know, Star Wars hasn't left the shelf since it had that short gap from the 80s to the 90s when TMNT took over, and then it came back and it hasn't left yet.
Same for Transformers, right?
Yeah. Small little gap where it wasn't on shelves, and it's been on shelves ever since. G.I. Joe takes small gaps, like here and there. But then for the most part, at least over the last 20 years, it's been very consistent on the shelf. So, I mean, there's certain brands you pretty much almost always guaranteed to find when you go to the big box store. But there's a lot that's not guaranteed to be found when you walk through those doors.
And my answer to this, Impossiblepie, is in person. It's more satisfying for me.
Yeah.
Now, that assumes we're talking about the same item. If it's a specific boxed item that I should have already got, it doesn't really matter whether I find it online or in person. But nothing beats the thrill of that vintage item or that item that you can no longer get and seeing it at a mom and pop shop that brought in some loose vintage items, or at a show or at a flea market. There's nothing really beats the thrill of that because it's a surprise, and everyone loves a good surprise, right? And that's exactly what it is. It's a good kind of surprise. So that's a great question, actually. Yeah,
no, I think, you know, as I sort of mentioned off the top, and I don't think Impossiblepie had joined right off the top, but I think there's a nostalgic element too to finding it in a store, right? Because we grew up finding these things in a store.
Yep.
And we had this discussion. What was it on your show, Oz, a couple weeks ago or whatever? I've had this discussion recently, I think, where you know, finding something in store unexpectedly reminds me of like when a new wave of G.I. Joes would come out, right? Because that was back before, you know, the internet, back before codename leaks, back before all that kind of stuff. You knew about new figures when they were physically in front of you. You know what I mean? Like, you only knew that G.I. Joe had a new set of figures, maybe even new characters, by, you know, rocking up to the Toys and Wheels in Orchard Park Mall.
Yes,
Going
we had
down
one
the
here.
middle aisle and seeing the display that you thought was going to be exactly the same as it was last weekend when you did the trip, but it's like all new, and you're like, oh no, what do I do? How am I going to get these? Will I get one today, or will I have to wait for an event because I'm a kid and I don't have my own money? Like, so finding something in store still has that feeling, and I think it's it's that nostalgic feeling. I think it doesn't. It's not the same ordering it online, but at the end of the day, once the dopamine of finding it on the shelf and getting it home and opening wears off, your collection is your collection regardless of where it comes from, I guess.
Yeah.
So was Toys and Wheels an international thing, or I remember it being in Canada? I don't know if they had it elsewhere.
I did not have one.
Most people have never heard of it. It might have been a BC thing.
Wow, because for me, I don't remember Child's World. Right.
I've never had that.
Yeah, I mean, I know in the U.S., Child's World was #2 next to Toys R Us for a number of years, but for the longest time, we didn't have a Toys R Us here. Toys R Us came in either 93 or 94 for me, which means I was in the prime era of like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in the ramp up to Beast Wars. And there was Star Wars Power of the Force 2 on there, but I wasn't into that, especially at the time. So, I mean, all right. So one thing I did want to ask before I forget is, what about the immense time between waiting for a pre-order versus receiving it in hand? Oz, let's go counterclockwise and jump over to you.
That's the scary part, because we all know what it's like. Like, oh yeah, I pre-ordered these and they're not due out for a year. And if you're not thinking about it, depending on how that retailer does that pre-order, it's either you hope they took the money at first, or maybe you didn't have the money up front and you're thankful for the pre-order because it's not going to come out until later. But then you play that game of what's coming, what's hitting my bank account, and nothing is worse than going into a store and going to use your debit card and seeing decline because you just had a whole bunch of pre-orders clear your bank account that you completely forgot about. So it can be scary. It can definitely be scary. Like right now, I know a lot of people with MOTU did their pre-orders this past week, and depending on which retailer you use, depends whether that money cleared your account this week or whether you're going to have several payments over the next couple of months that I hope you remember you have.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, especially when you're ordering from somebody who doesn't charge right away. Like, I sometimes prefer the charge right away, so that I know it's done. Now, mind you, like we were just talking Mythic Legions, that 2-pack of Gorgo and Attila. I didn't realize when I ordered it in 2022 at the beginning, that I'd still be waiting for it right now. But that's because we ordered it, and I don't think the figures were even tooled up yet. But that's okay, because that's an amazing set.
Well, and you also know it's coming. Like, that's definitely one of the things with, especially the Four Horsemen, at least, that I have discovered is they are very communicative, like with their process, what's going on, their timetables, what's happening. So if you keep up on it, you kind of know what to expect. But again, that money also cleared, like it's done with. So now you're just sitting back and relaxing and waiting. And there is a satisfaction in that. Like, I don't have to worry about anything. When it shows up, and I'll be good to go.
The worst, though, is the Amazon cancellation, because and
Walmart.
I was getting the Transformers Menasor, right? And I need all 5 bots to make Menasor. They canceled one. Now, I knee-jerk went and bought it at Walmart. Thankfully, it was still in stock, right? And I got that one. So thankfully, I was able to complete Menasor, but it was close call. It was a close call for a second there. Right, I thought I was gonna have to go to eBay and try to get the expensive price, because when they refund you the price you paid. I'm sitting there like, you should refund me the premium, but how would people know what the premium price is on the aftermarket? Then you got to track every item, not just that one, right? But that's kind of just how I felt about it at the time, because if it had spiked to a premium value on the on the aftermarket on eBay, then it would have been a double whammy for me to try to pick that up. Adam, what about you? What about you, my friend? The wait time between pre-order versus receiving.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in the minority as somebody that prefers to prepay for my pre-orders because for that very reason, I just don't like the uncertainty of like, when is this gonna land on my card? I and you know, there's sort of a knock-on sort of bonus effect of having your pre-orders prepaid, in that the boxes just show up, and it's like, so there's the surprise for me, right? Is that I don't necessarily know when things are going to show up, and they just you know, you get the email that says this is on its way to you. I don't know, you know, when I get those and it says like, you know, eCollectibles has something coming, I don't even always look at what the contents are, because I know I pre-ordered it. I know it's something that I wanted. So I put that email into I have an email folder for shipments to sort of track the shipments, and check the tracking number. And, you know, then it's exciting to sort of get it in hand, regardless of what it is. But I don't mind prepaying. I don't mind waiting, because again, like I said, you know, the amount of time that you can spend chasing these things, while it's fun and while it sort of gives you that reward, you know, that dopamine rush of finding it in the wild, at the same time, it's like you're paying for that with your time. So you're you know, it's, I guess hunting in store in some ways is you know, you get the rush of finding it in store, but like I said, the toy's the same whether you find it in store or order it online. But you do have to invest time, and by extension, you know, money. And depending on where you are, it's more or less. You know, when we were talking about the toy shows too, and people were talking about Gazz, and people were talking about, you know, all that kind of stuff. If I go to a toy show in Vancouver, so say next week I decide I'm going to go to that toy show that Ken's talking about. So I got to pay for gas for, like I said, an 8-hour round trip, mountain pass. So the weather could be bad too. So it could be more than 8 hours. It could be 10 or 12, or I could not make it at all. So gas is going to be, you know, that's a full tank of gas. So we're talking, for me, about $130. Then I got to pay to get into that toy show, which I think for that one is like $20 or $25. So I'm, you know, $150 to get to the toy show and back, assuming I don't buy any toys. So when people talk about like shipping, right, I can only assume that they live in a city where they can get that stuff. For me, it's like, if I got to pay shipping, I got to pay shipping. You know, if somebody can get me a PowerCon exclusive, I'm happy to pay the shipping, because the alternative of me going to PowerCon in Ohio is like $1,000 cost. So when you sort of look at when you do the balancing, and you sort of balance, okay, well, what is this really costing me? I think a lot of times people don't necessarily recognize the sort of incurred cost to like hunting, and for me driving, you know, 4 hours in each direction, the gas that sort of. So, you know, as much as I would love to just go to Toy Traders in Vancouver every weekend just for the fun of it, I'd be spending thousands of dollars a year just to go to the toy store and not get anything.
That's
so
how I built a bunch of my vintage Joe collection, was going there back when I had more time, because it's still a 50-minute drive for me, right? Like, it's not a short drive for me. But that's how I built a bunch of my vintage collection, is I went there every week for a short period of time. And I'm like, I better stop doing this for a while. But then it became, well, what am I going to do on that Saturday now? All right.
Well, what I've started doing with Toy Traders, and if you know, if people aren't familiar with Toy Traders, it's a massive toy store that has like tons of stuff. It also has like collectors areas, so they actually have like loose figures, so you can get like Marvel Legends just in a bag for like 10, 15, $20, or Black Series or Vintage Joes or whatever. Like, they have vintage and modern, all kinds, and it's so much fun. But it's called Toy Traders because you can take stuff in there, and they basically give you what's really cool is they give you the value that they're going to sell it for, basically, because you're just going to take something off their shelf. So you're basically trading your toys for other
sort of. It depends.
It's a little bit less. Yeah,
if you show up with an unsorted box of stuff, then they're going to charge you the premium to sort it. And also, I've never really had a situation where they go 1 for 1. It might be that they give me the value that I evaluated at, even if I was going to sell it, because they know that they've got a premium buyer in that market. And they can
that's
mark
true.
it up.
Yeah,
so that's the only reason only time I've seen them give me like 1 for 1 value.
I typically sell low, so that for me it's easy because I kind of value things in my head, and they say, here's what we'll give you for these items, and I go, really? I'll take it.
But they give you store credit, and they give it to you in like fake cash and like Trader Bucks cash.
Yeah, let me
which works. And I've asked them, but what do you do then? Like if you lose it, they're like, if you lose cash, what happens? And that's a smart way to do it, rather than keeping it on their system. Yeah.
I just went to get my Trader Bucks.
Yeah.
So they still have. God, I love seeing that kind of stuff because it takes right back to.
And there's no tax on items for Trader Bucks, so they do not charge you the GST and PST or whatever your provincial or state tax is on that.
More amazing,
right? So yeah, what do you think, Oz? Have I asked you yet? Wait time between pre-order versus receiving.
So for me, again, it's more so new with toys because I had been out of toy collecting for a while, and back when I was doing toy collecting previously was around the time Star Wars Revenge of the Sith had just happened and like all that was going on. So yeah, there was stuff like you could buy or order from Entertainment Earth, but I also didn't really have the money to order from Entertainment Earth at the time.
All right.
So it was really just whatever I could find in store. So there was no idea of me pre-ordering toys. Pre-ordering toys has been relatively new to me, and I've got to say, like, I honestly, so just pre-ordered a bunch of Mythic Legions coming into the new year for the Necronominus wave. It's paid off. It'll be here next year. I am wholly satisfied and happy about it. I love it. Origins just did, a big drop, or rather Mattel did their big Masters of the Universe drop. And some of that stuff's kind of coming scattered throughout the next couple of months, it appears. And it's like, I pre-ordered a couple of things here and there, nothing too crazy. But certain items it was saying were going to be like third quarter, at the end of this year. It's, people are getting updates now. Hey, this is about to hit and you're going to have it within a week. And it's like, wait a minute, what? No, this said third quarter next year. Why is this hitting my pile of loot this week? Because it should not be there yet. So again, that's where that pre-order and waiting I have no problem with when it's paid off in full and fine. Like Mythic Legions, I'm good. I'm not worried about that. Pre-ordering from BBTS and doing that where they're not charging me at the time of pre-order can put you in a bit of a spot, and that's a bit of a drawback because you
forget, right? Like you can say in your head, "I'm going to track it," but when you go to your day-to-day life, you go to your job, you go to, you got family stuff. Like how can you actually like keep track? Like, yeah, you can keep a spreadsheet. How often do you look at that spreadsheet? Right? Some people might, and if they got a good system, more power to them. So yeah. Anyway,
for work, I have to track things. So it's like to me, that's so weird because I could probably tell you everything I have on pre-order right now.
But see, you got a good system, which is good. That's how all of us.
No, I don't have a system. That's just my brain just works like that.
Okay, so you have a system without knowing you have a system.
Yes, I have an internal system.
We call it a system. You call it second nature, right? You call it instinct. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, I know we spent a good hour here chatting about the actual toy hunt, versus online shopping, and I know we've covered a lot. We can definitely circle back to that a little bit, but I did want to touch on a little bit of like independent toy news, like not the big companies. I know I mentioned that at the start of the stream is that the Legends of the Hidden Force, the Kickstarter, just launched this morning. And actually, if you check Toy Connections, has a trailer on the channel, a 1-minute trailer on Legends of the Hidden Force. I was talking to Darren, who's one of the co-owners of the line, and I was trying to connect with him yesterday about how to do this trailer. But he's in Toylanta right now, so I was getting spotty answers throughout the day. So he's launched during Toylanta, which is great. But for those who don't know, this is a Ninja's O-ring line that just kickstarted this morning, like early in the morning, like probably like 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, maybe even earlier. But this is...
Could I just say I love that thumbnail image right there?
Yeah. It's quite... It's I don't know, like, it's going to be exclusively Ninja, so I'm not sure, like, is it going to hit everyone in the sweet spot? I hope so. Like, I'm going to get a few of these for sure. Now, this is in Canadian, so if you can see, they currently have... They launched this morning, so they have 12,000... Basically $12,500 of a 50,000 goal. So that, to me, they're a quarter of the way there. If you're looking in American dollars, that's correct. Yeah, that's a quarter of the way there. So, if you look through, they've got these characters right here, and you can get the all in for the 6 figures, or you can do individual figures. Like, I'm definitely going to get this character. I just love the way he looks. He happens to be the main character. He's the Pale of the line, right? For those AWOC fans. And sorry, I just realized when I go to the other tab here, I'm unable to actually monitor the chat. So do let me know if somebody has something that they want to add or a very important question about this particular line. Not that I'll know the answer anyway, but we do live in an era basically of the action figure Kickstarter, or as I call it, the O-ring renaissance of life right now. There's quite a bit to like here. There's also quite a bit that's unique and might be kind of a, I don't know, like an acquired taste. But if you look, they're already a quarter of the way there just in the first few hours. So I believe this will fund. I don't see why it wouldn't. How far they get into their stretch goals, I'm not 100% sure. But
it's a project that definitely complements anybody that's currently collecting O-ring. Or absolutely loves, something like Ninja Force. I'm kind of out on this scale as of fairly recently, and I'll still pick up, if Hasbro does more of the G.I. Joe O-ring stuff, just for the nostalgic factor. But these look great. I mean, and the designs are a lot of fun. I think this line's going to do really, really well because, like you said, this is timed so well. Even though, like, I think standalone, if there was no other O-ring lines coming out right now, this might have a harder time. But the fact that you've got your Skeletron 3 3/4 inch figures, you've got your call sign Longbow, Operation Recall, soon Delta 17. This will fit right in with all of that because they all have that very familiar nostalgic vibe in terms of the design and stuff.
I wasn't sure. I was a bit concerned for Darren and his buddies there, because I was like, there's so many other O-ring lines. Is it the right time to launch? But it's also in that gap in between, like Operation Recall's Kickstarter ended months ago now, right? We don't know of another O-ring Kickstarter that's coming out because Delta 17 is not going to Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
But there's also other lines like Savage Crucible. I did want to give them a bit of a mention as well. And I almost did reach out to the owner there, Robert, I think his name is. Yeah. I know you had him on last week, Adam. I was thinking, just considering getting him on to do like a Savage Crucible Kickstarter talk, but everyone's got him on right now. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not adding any value right now. What am I going to do other than ask the same questions? But that line looks really good too. And he's like triple or quadruple his funding goals, so he's absolutely killing it as well. But I don't know, like I will back this for a few figures. I don't know that I'll go all in, but even if you weren't into getting all the ninjas, even if you weren't into the lore, and there's a lore behind this, it's about 3 clans that used to be united and splintered off, and now they're all rival clans. And but even if you didn't follow that lore and you just wanted to add them to your 90s Ninja Force or to your Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes rank, you could do that with these figures. That's what's cool about them, right? So
I think
I don't
there's
know. Like,
I think there's still a very active, very hungry O-ring collector market. So this, I think, like you said, even if people buy, 3 figures, 2, 3, 4 figures, whatever it is, you don't have to be all in on sort of all the waves. There's some really clever parts reuse, so they don't have a ton of tooling, which is smart. It's the way that O-ring figures sort of have always been. And it's timed well because, like you said, there isn't, as far as I know, either another O-ring sort of Kickstarter or sort of pre-order campaign right now. And a lot of people, are already 2, 3, 4, different lines of O-ring figures in. So, why not add this one? I guess. I like I said, I see this one being pretty successful.
yeah, and I wasn't 100% sure how to feel just because some people might go, well, I already got Operation Recall. I already got this. But this is different, though.
Yeah, but do
right?
you have ninjas?
That's the thing, is the ninjas make it unique. And I think this character is kind of like the Kali of the line. There you go, another AWOC for you, Paynes and Brick. And for those, and the two of you on screen as well, there's another AWOC reference. Anyway, sorry, Oz, did you have something to add?
I was just going to say, like, I remember when Ninja Force hit in the 90s for G.I. Joe, and I freaking wanted everything, all about it. And this is hitting all of those elements right now. Because I brought it up as soon as you mentioned it. I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? I got to look at this. You said O-ring. And I don't do O-ring very much, but I like to appreciate it, because I really don't have room for another toy line. But man, if you don't have me looking at this, like, I want a bunch of ninjas. Like, I really do.
I know. I don't know how many I'm gonna get. I can think of 2 right now that I really want as the main character and his friend, because even in my own headcanon, they look innocent enough to be like Snake Eyes trainees right there with Kamakura. They'd be buddies with Kamakura. And that's even without following the lore. And I like to follow the lore.
Yeah, you could definitely pull these into a headcanon.
And so sort of easy.
Yeah.
I'm looking at building the ranks of the Hirashikage and like right now making a whole ninja school.
Oh my goodness. Now you got me thinking, like, do I take the evil guys here and make them the Hirashikage? Oh my goodness, I may have to back more than the 2 figures I was thinking of. Like, you just got me thinking.
They got the army builder packs too.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the
3 figure packs. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
This.
I'm gonna take a close look at this line. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this brings something up too, though, right? Because we're talking about, toy hunting in person versus online, and we're talking about a Kickstarter. And a big part of why most of my toy buying is online is because, it's Kickstarter or backer kit or independent lines where I'm choosing to like order direct from them if I can or when I can. And this stuff, unfortunately, is not big box stuff. It's not something you're gonna find in the wild unless, like you said, Ken, you go to a toy show and somebody's got Mythic Legions on a table or AWOC on a table, or Hidden Force on a table, or well, they wouldn't because it's not released, it's Kickstarter, but you get my point. I'm happy to pre-order it because that's really the only option. I have to order it online because otherwise I'm not getting it. I'm not ever going to see, I'm never going to see this figure you have on screen in the wild, ever.
Nope. It's not going to happen.
I might. I mean, Toy Traders.
Again, that's a very different, there's no guarantee that this will ever back either. So, I mean, it's very true that
it's very pessimistic, Oz, but I see what I get your point.
Just gonna put it out there. It's a gamble. Anytime you back a Kickstarter or something of that nature, it may not take. We all hope that it does. We all have a voice to keep talking about it and help promote it so that we can see it come to fruition, which is a very important element that we bring, when we talk about these Kickstarters and backing projects. But, it's without that, then there might not be the online market that we have. Oh my God, what is the deal with these wings? They've got wings and stuff.
Wings? What are you talking about? Like
Okay, it's mechanical flying backpack.
Okay.
All right. So I think it's like a wave up from where you're at now, Ken.
Okay.
Is that the expansion pack thing?
Yeah, they've got like these little like accessory packs and stuff like that, or adventure packs. And yeah, there it is. That one that you were just on.
This is. I mean, I looked at this. I looked at this morning, and the backer, like on the what is it? I'm getting it flipped up in my head. On the right side, right where they give you all the different options for like how do you want to back it. Mm-hmm. It's confusing because tons of them overlap, and I can't tell what the difference is between a lot of them. Like it says initiate to the hidden force or go down to the next one. Same amount of money, friend of the hidden force, go down to the next one. Initiate of the hidden force again. So there's something weird going on with their sort of goals and their offerings as far as rewards. But you know, honestly, that stuff doesn't matter because ultimately you get in with your backing and then you add all your figures afterwards anyway. So it doesn't matter, but it was a bit confusing, but the offerings, you know, the pictures that they're showing, they look great. And those adventure packs just add so much play value. Yes. You know, whether it's the one with the wings or the one that's like the forge. So you get like, there's sort of Dio aspects to this stuff too, which is really, really fun. You can kind of expand your world. It has this sort of play set feel that I don't think any of the other O-ring lines have offered yet. You know, we've seen really great figures in those other lines, but we haven't really seen the sort of accessory sets and play sets and, you know, maybe.
Oh look, Road Pig became a ninja. I don't know. What do you see? I see Road Pig.
No, 100%. I definitely saw
100%
past him.
Right.
That's like a repainted Road Pig.
Yeah.
And his hammer just got modified from a cinder block to a chunk of metal.
Yeah.
Right. Or concrete, whatever that is.
Oh, and look, Raiden from Mortal Kombat became.
Well, they swapped. They gave him Ermac's tunic, and they were like, "Okay, here you go."
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I dig it though. Like, I'm really liking this line. This is. Thank you for bringing this up, Ken.
God. Oh, and if they hit $1 million, they'll go into film. But yeah, I think this is going to do well. I'm not sure how far they'll go past their initial goal, but I have full confidence this thing is going to fund.
Yeah.
But they don't. I mean, you know, depending on, you know, what their sort of future plans are, I think people get hung up on like, you know, if it hits funding, the line goes into production, whether that's just wave 1 or whether they can hit wave 2 or wave 3 or whatever. But the fact that they have all these waves planned, I mean, in theory, you know, you fund for wave 1. And I think Operation Recall is a good example of this, where Carson was very sort of clear and explained that we're going to make all these figures. It'll just be a matter of how soon we can make the Kickstarter is just a matter of how soon they can make them. And I think different Kickstarters do a better job of sort of expressing how they're going to sort of do that than others. I think what Savage Crucible really has going for them is that they've been very clear and very, I think, very sort of forthcoming with, okay, wave 1 is going to go into production and ship and be delivered, and then we're going to move on to wave 2. You can back all 3, but you're going to get 3 separate shipments, right? Like they're giving you the timeline for like when this is all going to happen. And I think sometimes some Kickstarters that don't do as well, they just sort of throw a whole bunch of stuff on the screen and it's confusing and you don't know when things are coming or what. Is there a wave? Is it just, are you doing one figure? Are we going to get all of them? Is this, you know, does more figures delay things? As, you know, on and on and on. So a successful Kickstarter in a lot of instances, I think, is largely due to how the Kickstarter is presented. Which is sad because I think there's some great product that doesn't get funded because a lot of lines are started and run by creatives and not by business-minded people, and so they don't necessarily see that they've missed explaining what they're doing.
Well, you know, just because he's in the chat, And hopefully people do check out that Legends of the Hidden Force Kickstarter. But just because Ramen Toy is in the chat, and I did want to talk about this a little bit, and I was texting with him yesterday.
The Maverick.
The Maverick.
It looks great.
6-inch. Right. I think he said that the early bird price going up in a week or two is $69.99 US, and then goes up to $99.99 after that. And that's just because of his order quantities, right? And I think he was looking at shaving down a couple of millimeters off this just to make him a little bit shorter.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and no, you're not hijacking the stream at all, Ramen. If Oz and Adam look in the private chat, I actually mentioned that I was going to try to touch on this just a little bit because I've got a video coming out on it tomorrow. Assuming there's no massive changes that my video becomes out of date. But I got a video coming on this tomorrow. It's already filmed. It's just that I launched the Hidden Legends of the Hidden Force trailer already, so I didn't want to do the Maverick one on the same day. But I'm definitely getting this. People are going to have, their feel on whether or not a 6-inch figure should be $69.99. And I'm kind of like, yeah, it's kind of in between that not quite Mezco, but more than your usual. But it's still a boutique enough item, right? That I know that if Ramen got big enough and was doing larger quantities, they'd be able to keep that price a little bit lower, right? Like at least down to where Super 7's price is at $55. But that assumes they can do the quantities. They just haven't grown to that level yet, and that's okay. Hey, there you go. Yeah, go ahead.
Quickly, Ken, can you bring up Impossiblepie's question there? It says, anyone know what the upfront? You see that one?
Oh yeah, and he says he's just about to take off, so let's try to answer his question ahead of time. What does it cost upfront to even start something like this before someone pays a dime for a pre-order? I'm thinking he means like the tooling cost.
So it's a loaded question because it can cost you virtually nothing, or it can cost you a lot. And oftentimes the ones that sort of don't pre-invest anything are the ones that have the most problems, because you can forecast what something's going to cost before you take it to a factory, and then the factory can go, yeah. So you forecast, and Ramen could probably touch on this, Ace could probably touch on this, but like he knows how much it's going to cost him to make this Maverick figure, and so he's already done toys, so he's not going to be sort of caught in this sort of thing. But like Rob has mentioned it about Savage Crucible, that a lot of times, you do this Kickstarter and they set a funding goal and they decide, the figure is going to be $30, and then they take it to the factory and the factory says, okay, it's going to cost you this much. And then they look at shipping and then they look at all this other stuff, and then they pay for their tooling molds and stuff like that. And all of a sudden the money's gone because they didn't know any of the prices appropriately,
and a lot of times they don't account for certain things, right? Like I know you're talking about startup, but I've also seen situations and heard of situations where you have a company, you've tooled everything up, but now for whatever reason you have to go to a different factory, either the previous factory shutting down or you need a bigger operation, so you get all your tooling. And for people who don't know, tooling is the big steel mold, the big steel blocks that you pour the plastic into in order to get your base figure before it's painted up and decoed and detailed up. If you got to send that to another factory whose machines are a little bit different, they need to either retool that item or recast the mold. And it can cost a lot of money to either retool it or recast the mold. And it just, do you have thousands and thousands, or in some cases tens of thousands? Again, I'm bound by NDA to say what the actual dollars. In fact, I don't even know how much that one would cost in that specific example. But do you have that kind of money just lying around to retool something in a new factory? Because let's say you outgrow your old factory.
A 6-inch scaled figure, the molds will cost, depending on how complicated the figure is in terms of how many accessories and stuff like that, is anywhere from sort of $30,000 to $50,000 for the mold for the figure. So then that's a sunk cost, right? You pay that whether you make one or 1,000 or 10,000.
Yeah.
So it's economy of scale. The more figures you make, the less the mold costs. If your per unit cost goes down the more you make. So that's where companies like Mattel or Hasbro or whatever make more money. Their margin is increased because of the volume of stuff that they sell. It's also why, this figure will seem like it's expensive compared to, a Hasbro product. But it's just the cost per figure is just much, much higher because you're doing far fewer figures.
Yeah.
But as far as like, if you're running a Kickstarter, like I said, like you could invest nothing, or in the case of Savage Crucible, like Rob put in a whole bunch of his own money, like a lot more than I think people really appreciate. And the molds for Wave 1, to the best of my knowledge, are more or less done. They have to make more because they're adding additional parts. But that speeds the process up, and it also makes, you know, it's safer to the backer because he's already put the money in. He wants to make the figures to recoup those costs. If the molds aren't done yet, the molds are that's the big scary thing for the new startups and the new guys. And it's so, you know, specifically to Impossiblepie's toy question. What is it?
Impossiblepie. Yeah.
Impossiblepie?
Just startup. Yeah.
It could. I mean, there's no. It doesn't have to be anything, right? Their initial cost could be zero, and if it is, that's the one that I don't necessarily want to invest in, because if they haven't invested in it, why should I? I want to hear some sort of investment on their part before I'm willing to invest on my end. And yeah, you know, Ace mentions too, the other cost is development, prototype, logistics too. People, you know, that it's got to get shipped, it's got to get on a truck, it's got to get on
3D designers. 3D designers are hard to artists, like package artists. They cost money. You know, we're going through that right now.
When people are kind of critical about packaging can cost a lot of money. There's an aspect of like your cost, and that's per unit, because you know, that's not a sunk cost. That's not like you pay it once and it's done. Every package has to be printed, and when you get an insert card that has like a full graphic, and the box has full graphic and all that kind of stuff.
You don't want extra boxes hanging around too. So you're only going to try to get an account.
I would take my figures in a brown paper bag with somebody Jiffy markered on the front what it is. You
know, it depends too though, because like I am the guy who usually recycles packaging because I just can't keep it all. But my current task for Delta 17 is to actually be the one to write the bios. So I'm sitting there like, if I get these in, am I going to throw away something that I actually wrote? That's the hard part for all this. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like this is an interesting conversation, and I could have just completely re-diverted the stream to nothing but like independent toy news today, and we could have spent 90 minutes going on about Legends of the Hidden Force, the Ramen toy reveals, which includes their Happy Halloween car, the Ghost Rider car. We could have talked a bit about Savage Crucible, which we have. We've talked Savage Crucible. I haven't pulled their images up, but you know, we know that they've funded like, you know, multiple times over, which I'm so happy for them for that. And it's interesting because it almost feels as though I could have done a news stream today and it would have been just as much fun. Right. Oh, there's also Defenders of the Earth that Payne's Toy Samples has mentioned in the chat, and also Almighty. I think Almighty Legends.
Almighty Legends is another big one that's out right now. The Defenders of Eden, that's Armies of Ashmore, which is like medieval dino saucers, which is amazing. And then you got the Biblical Adventures from D13 rolling around. Like there are so many different independent projects going on right now that all are so amazing.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And it's just like, it becomes a question of what do you back? You know, like there's the initial, do I back it? And then when you say yes, it's like, well, how much do I get? So yeah.
What can I get from this? What can I get from this? Are they going to work well together on my shelf? You know, kind of thing.
You know, it's funny because like it's tempting. I would just wish there were more hours in a week, because I'd love to do like a TKO that's like this, which is more retrospective and like collector habit oriented, and then do like a toy news thing, kind of like Toy Habits and those other channels do, right? I'd love to do that, but like, it's hard to get the bandwidth to do all that, right? That's why I kind of squeezed it into the back end of this particular stream, because I knew you two are usually up to speed on what's going on. Like I tend to get less of, oh, Ken, what's going on? Fill me in. You know, for me, which I don't mind doing that for some people, but I've had some people kind of expect me to do that, and I'm just like, come on, man. Like I once had Adam, a guy you and I know, when he didn't know about AWOC, he messaged me almost like giving me hell, like, you didn't tell me this line came out. What the heck? You know I rely on you for news. I'm like, if every person came to me expecting me to drop news for them on a one-to-one basis, and I know the person was joking, right? But like, I was like, no, right? But long story short, I do wish I could do like a weekly like news burst. You know, like a lot of channels do it, right? Like the Full Force does it for GI Joe stuff. GDL's doing one tonight. Toy Anxiety kind of does a mix of toy news and hauls and sad comments, right? But they'll usually put their news. But they'll usually put their news in the in the thumbnail, right? So yes, and thanks again. Big round of applause for our all-star moderator Gazz for always. You know, I don't send him the links ahead of time. He's just resourceful enough to find every single thing. Like sometimes he finds Facebook groups that I didn't even know exist, but somebody mentioned it in the chat, and he'll be like, "Okay, I'll go find it." Right? He'll join it just to help out TKO. So
we were talking a little bit about that last night, like where do people get their news from, and it's like, you know, I'm just because of my nature, again, like the way my system works, i.e. my brain, I just want to know all the news for myself, and I want to, like, I'm sort of constantly scanning, you know, Toy News Eye or Toy Arc or the Fwoosh or whatever, Toy Habits, geekdadlife.com now, like all these websites, you know, kind of do the hard work for me and sort of put it all in one place. But yeah, it's funny. There's still, you know, collectors. There's still toy collectors that sort of never seem to be up on the latest stuff. And I'm sort of like, what do you like? How do you not know this stuff? And it's like, it's a bit odd to me as somebody that just, you know, really wants to know. But whether it's time or whether it's, maybe they just don't know the right channels, or they're not in the right Facebook groups or whatever. I don't know. I never know. But even in some Facebook groups, right, people will ask like, "Oh, when is this coming out?" And you're like, "Wait, there's been like 20 posts about that. Like, how where have you been?
Are you not looking at this as like?"
Well, and it's weird to me because it's sort of like it wouldn't be hard to answer this question just by like going through a group, and it's weird to me that somebody would just automatically ask a question without sort of putting in any effort. I mean, it just, I like, you know, lazy personally, but that's
sometimes we talk to each other about stuff that we don't, that we're not fully up to speed on, Adam, but we usually contextualize the question. It's not, okay, I've been busy all week, give me all the toy news now. And then, what's Savage Crew? Okay, Legends of the, okay, so how are they different? Okay, well, one's ninjas and one's, you know, like 6-inch like Savagery and like Barbarians and like Reptile Man. Oh, okay, so is it run by the same person? No, you know, like that's the kind of conversation that drives me a little bit nuts. It's more when it's kind of like, hey, I missed it. Do you know when they're shipping? Oh yeah, like, you know, a more directed question that actually flows a conversation, right? Those are the ones that I love having those, and I have those conversations with both of you. I have those conversations with people in the chat, with Gazz and other people. I'll talk to Ramen directly about things like, I didn't realize that Ramen had put up the price of the Maverick figure because it was put in the replies of one of the comments, right? So when I was scrolling through the main feed, I didn't get that, right? But when I was sort of talking to him about my video that I was making, he said, oh yeah, by the way, the price is announced. I'm like, okay, good. So I went and found it, right? But yeah, there has to be a little bit of back and forth effort. Like, even if you're busy and you can only put in like 10% of the effort, that's 10% less somebody has to explain to you. And we're all busy, right? So,
well, you know, people are into different lines too, right? Like that's, you know, the stuff that you're talking about too is just generally like conversation stuff. You know, if I ask you like, oh, what figures did you order from this wave? And you're like, oh, when is it shipping? You know, it's not, you know, I can't remember you ever just messaging me out of the blue with a question about like a toy line or something. You know what I mean? Like it's in conversation.
Yeah. Usually that's what it is, right? Because sometimes I get the, hey, what is this? Well, it's this. Okay, send me a link. I'm like, you can't. I'm like, it's gonna take you the same amount of time to Google. Yeah, but I don't have time. Send me the link. I'm like, but it's gonna take me the same amount of time. So I send them the link, and it's like, okay, so how do I order? Who is this? How do I know if it's trustworthy? I'm like, if you scroll down, you'll recognize the name the name says NECA, and then they're like, yeah, but I've never ordered from them. I'm like, but you don't order directly from NECA. That's just the release. Okay, so send me the link to order. No, you know what I mean?
I think think sometimes what it is a little bit too is that people can't or don't read. I know of somebody who thought they were going to order PowerCon exclusives yesterday because they didn't read the instructions that said they were for attendees only, and then they couldn't figure out why they couldn't order them. And I responded, "Well, did you read the instructions? Did you?" And he knows who he is, and he's watching. But it's just, yeah, I mean, the information's always out there. And if it isn't, then I won't know the answer anyway. So it's just kind of funny that I just specifically in a group, right? When it's a Facebook collectors group for a specific brand and somebody asks a question that's like, seems so obvious.
But you're also an admin of that group, and that's the key thing, right? Like that happened to me before when people think, "Oh, you post a lot, so you should know everything about it."
That's true.
Not really, but I did put myself in this position, so I do accept some responsibility for some of that.
Yeah, I guess on some level, I'd put myself out there. People ask me questions, and I'm like, "How would I know that?" And then I'm like, "Oh, wait, you think I know things? I don't know."
I do recognize people might get the O-ring lines a bit crossed though, right? Because they'll be like, "Oh, Ken, you promoted call sign longbow. Is that the line that you're writing the bios for?" I'm like, "No, that's Delta 17." That's a completely forgivable question, right? Right. And that's totally fine. And again, I'm just soapboxing some not so much frustrations, but like hilarious frustrations that are worth sharing. You know what I mean? So yeah. But anyway,
and that's the other thing. If I get one of those questions, I'm not offended. I'm like,
yes.
I'm just sort of like, what?
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
I mean, you've asked the question, but scroll down, you'll get your answer.
Fourth or fifth basic question, and I feel a little bit of irritation. Then I go back to being amused again, and that's totally okay, right? Like I don't even begrudge
seeing the post that asks the same question. That's when I'm sort of.
That's the thing, right? I don't begrudge anyone who just doesn't know or doesn't have the resources or anything like that. Like ask away, but at the same time, it's like once you've got the resources. Scroll down.
You're in the group. You're in the group.
Yeah.
That's the resource.
Yeah. Like it'd be bad if somebody handed you like a 5,000 page manual and said it's in here. Okay, that I understand. But like scroll down, 3 posts or scroll down halfway down the page and you'll get the exact information. But that, again, it's gonna happen, right? Like some people, it's just how they operate. And I have friends who do that, and it just happens. So I learned to accept it to some degree, but not all the time. It doesn't mean now I'm gonna get a bunch of troll messages from people, saying, "Ken, what's the toy? How do I buy the thing? What the BBTS stand for?" Like I'm gonna get a bunch of jokes now on that, and that's okay. It's all good. Gentlemen, time really flew today. Like it just really flew. I like this cobweb. Do you know when my grocery store is going to restock the 8-pack of Jimmy Dean sausage sandwiches? Well, see, cobweb, it depends what time zone you're in and what day of week it is. Tomorrow's Monday, so they'll probably receive a new shipment then.
They are currently feeding those pigs right now.
Don't call me out. I love it. Anyway, so what are you gentlemen working on in the next in the foreseeable future?
Okay, well, I'll go first. So, oh God, I don't even say this now because we did this. So later today, I will be appearing with Eldor Bob, talking about some fine art on the wonderful packages of these beautiful toys that we all love to buy. So it was a nice kind of segue earlier with the talk about what goes into making these packages and how much time and investment that can be as well. So I'll be talking to him a little bit later about that. Then later this Thursday, we have Toy Frenzy coming up as usual every Thursday night at 9 or 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. And then next Saturday, we've got another amazing episode of Ozstradamus Toyz Live, who we have no idea who might show up or what's going to happen. Because even last night, definitely kind of just took an odd sidebar that extended into 6 hours of streaming. So,
yep.
But it was fun though.
But that's what's good about your sort of like, it's a semi-open mic, right? Yeah. So yeah. Adam, you going on later today?
Yeah, in about 3 hours, I will be on my soapbox ranting about collectors that have victim mentality, that think that brands are out to get them, and just because I've had enough, and so I'm pushing back against that idea. No,
I can't tell if you're joking or not.
Well, I mean, it's weird because, like, Ken, you know me, and I've said this before. You know, there's people that are half glass, half empty, and there's people that are half full. I'm half full, and I question whether I need a half a glass or a quarter would have been fine. Like, this should be fun. Toys should be fun, and I've got this thing in my brain that I just want to sort of get out, a little bit Mad Hatter thing going on. Honestly, it'll probably be 5 minutes of a video that's like an hour. It's not going to be that.
I know. Well, I did get joked on one time. It also
led to a pretty clickbaity title and thumbnail for the video. So we'll see if that.
I'll have to listen when I'll be on the road at that time, but I'll see if I can listen. But
yeah, I'm going to be talking about some toy news too, solo too, because I didn't necessarily want to incriminate anybody else during my rant.
The glass half full thing. I once got a joke from somebody when I said the glass was half full, and they're like, "You mean a half glass full of urine?" And I'm just kind of like, "Oh, come on!" So all the links for Ozstradamus Toyz and Highly Articulated are in the chat below. And I do want to say, I just remind everybody, next week, if I'm not pulling up chats like this next week, it's again because the TKO next week is pre-recorded. So I don't know exactly when I'm going to air that, but we'll see. I think it's going to go on Saturday around 2:30 Pacific is kind of my plan. But what I'll do is I'll set the premiere and then I'll go to my toy show. So I won't be in the chat. So if I'm ignoring the chat, if somebody super chats or joins a membership and I don't pull it up, it's not because I'm ignoring you on purpose. So you heard it here first. Okay. So that's how it's going to go. And we'll be thinking of all of you at the toy show next week for sure in this particular conversation. But you know what? Support your mom and pop brands, your small brands. Support your big brands if you like them, and subscribe to these two gentlemen. So I think we're good to call it today. And I don't know how to end the streams. I'm just gonna pull a Mega J and say, "Geek proud, everyone." #OneCommunity. There we go. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye bye.
Thanks for watching.